Hello lovely people! Today my brain is on fire and you know what that means? It's one of the 20 days a month I have a migraine. Oh what? Sorry, did you think this was going to be some kind of exciting announcement? There was a drum roll, so... Okay, alright, because I built you up into a froth of excitement, I'll share with you that... drum roll. This November, I will be launching a new merch line with DFTBA, available for pre-orders from the 1st of October. So keep an eye out for the link appearing on my various social medias, which by the way are in the description of this video. I am really excited about this new line and I hope you are too. It features 3 enamel pin styles, because gay, some such tosh, and my channel's crest, which I'm pretty much going to wear all the time. And a pack of greeting cards with 5 different designs suitable for a variety of occasions. They're really pretty and I love them. Today, in the latest instalment of Jessica Feels Bad About Her Student Loan so has decided to actually use her screen analysis degree, we're going to be talking about inspiration porn. And finding a million ways to misspell that word so we don't get demonetized. With a 0, with a star, with a random Cyrillic character? Sure, invent your own in the comments. So, inspiration porn. What is it? How do you recognise it? And why does perpetuating feel-good stereotypes demean the disabled community? Ooh, we got salty with that last one. What is inspiration porn? Coined in 2012 by disability rights activist Stella Young as part of an editorial in the webzine Ramp Up, inspiration porn is the term used to classify the portrayal of people with disabilities as inspirational, solely or in part on the basis of their disability. Stella purposefully used the off-putting term porn because in both sexual and inspiration porn we see the objectification of people for the benefit of others. Doesn't make me any less sex worker positive, however. In this case, non-disabled individuals benefit from comparing themselves to those with disabilities. Trust me, you've seen it before. Those posters featuring a stock image of a child in a wheelchair, just sitting there, smiling, with "Your excuse is invalid" written underneath. That's a joke on the word invalid, get it? Because I'm an invalid, but you're kind enough to decide that my existence is not invalid. The concept revolves around the central premise that disabled people's otherwise ordinary activities should be considered extraordinary solely because of disability. I've made videos on this topic before and you can find them in my disability playlist, which I will leave in a card in the corner up here. But we're reasonable humans. We know that disabled characters in our films and TV shows should be more than just a magical rock that inspires the main character, right? We know that they're actually humans with thoughts and feelings and inherent worth. So why does Hollywood keep spitting inspiration porn back at us? Well, it doesn't have anything to do with actual disabled people. I can tell you that for nothing. You see, when I have a palsy and my legs don't work or my energy is crashing because I live with chronic pain and fatigue, a good attitude isn't actually going to get me up the stairs to bed. I mean, I have a great smile, but it won't magically manifest a butler to carry me upstairs. It did manifest a wife to do that job though. She really likes my smile. Although inspiration porn is difficult because it others disabled people and portrays disability as a burden that only angels could handle, as opposed to addressing the social barriers that we might be facing, the hardest part is that actually people mean well and would probably be upset or embarrassed if they thought of the implications of what they were saying. When I was an ill teenager and my mother was looking after me, people would just constantly praise her for working to keep me alive, as if other parents wouldn't have bothered. As if I should be extra specially grateful that my parents didn't just, get rid of me once I became defective? As if deciding to become a parent doesn't mean being willing to just accept whatever kind of child you're given. Thanks, glad to know my worth is much lower in relation to other kids. Cool. But the people who said those things meant well, and if I ever pointed that out, actually I found that upsetting, to be told, I would be reprimanded for being too sensitive. I feel like, right, as disabled people, we're constantly being given the message that we can't complain about anything because we should be grateful that we're allowed to be here, taking up space. There are 2 types of disabled people in films. The angels, like The Boy Who Could Fly, or the evil cripple, like Dr. Strangelove. And the latter generally have a sticky end, so it's probably best to try and be the former. This manifests itself in the media trope known as inspirationally disadvantaged. Portraying a a character as disadvantaged and then glorifying their rise out of that situation without addressing any of the systemic issues that put them there is dishonest. It's obviously aspirational in a sense. Oh, they tried hard and achieved. You could too. But it ignores that actually, A, we can't all beat injustice by trying harder, and B, disabled people are, people? Just people? That's it really, the headline. Disabled people are people. Okay, fine, it's not that exciting a headline. Objectifying people with disabilities by celebrating them doing simple things shows that expectations are lowered from the start. And that can be, weirdly hilarious. In the TV show Speechless, a sitcom following a zany family who just happened to have a son with cerebral palsy, JJ starts at a mainstream school and is applauded the minute he enters the class simply because he's disabled and there. He's then immediately nominated for class president before the rest of the year has even met him. Even his teacher just gives out meaningless platitudes about how brave he was to be there. FYI, I absolutely love Speechless from the 4 episodes of it I was able to watch on a plane one time. And now I would really like to watch more of it, but I can't find it on the internet. If you can watch it on your country's Netflix, let me know so I can employ a good old-fashioned VPN. It's the little things that'll get us through 2020. I love that Speechless makes fun of inspiration porn situations, but in many other cases, it's the film or TV show that is creating the scenario itself. Many times, the inspirationally disadvantaged person's seemingly endless reserve of strength is applied to perfectly ordinary tasks like finishing school or going on a date. And I am not going to say that those things aren't hard. I mean, goodness, I found them both incredibly difficult. But they were tough because I was different and the world around me wasn't great at adapting to that. I was a square peg and there were only round holes. And I didn't come out the other side thinking, wow, I'm so inspirational for having finished school, and those who weren't able to squeeze into the round hole are useless. I came out thinking, Jesus, why do we have holes? And wanting to destroy the whole system. Anyway. Look, it's more than a little patronising to portray a disabled person as heroic for doing something the rest of the population does all the time. It's also uncomfortably close to the "you're one of the good ones" narrative. That's the "you're so pretty for a lesbian" or "you're so clever for an ethnic minority." That's the weirdly socially acceptable version of "I hate everyone you identify with, but not you, you're one of the good ones." Just say it. Just say you hate everyone and go. If you've ever seen the TV show Highway to Heaven, which ran in the 80s and was a precursor to Touched by an Angel, which ran in the early 2000s, you will have seen a lot of this. One example is the recurring character Scotty, who in his first appearance passes the bar exam despite his disability. He's paraplegic. Why would using a wheelchair stop him from passing a bar exam? I don't understand. He also inspires everyone to a ridiculous degree. Like in a later episode, his law firm is failing, but because Scotty doesn't quit, keeps working, everyone else around him keeps working. Isn't that literally their job? Scotty then inspires a paralysed teenager whose football career has been cut short to become a gymnast. Sure, makes sense. He can pull himself up with his arms, I guess. On the pommel horse, with his legs firmly held straight out at an angle and If you Google paralysed gymnast, you mainly find horror stories about terrible injuries, not people with paralysis doing gymnastics, but please prove me wrong on that, because I would actually love to know more. Do some people with disabilities prohibit them from doing certain things? Sure. Does the appearance of a disability or a specific diagnosis determine what one's abilities may be? Absolutely not. But with or without a diagnosis, all human beings are unable to do some things. It's sort of part of being human. No one person can do it all. Specific disabilities make some inabilities more likely, but we should never assume inability based on this alone. There's a simple yet effective slogan within the disability activist community: presume competence. With the right supports and services, we can all achieve success. To a degree. Those freaking migraines! We can see this trope from even some of the earliest examples of disabled people on screen. In the 1948 drama film Johnny Belinda, Belinda, played by Jane Wyman, is not only deaf and mute, but pregnant! Dun dun dun! Who knew that not being able to hear doesn't affect your fertility? Mind-blowing. The film follows Dr. Robert Richardson, the new doctor who arrives in a fishing village in Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia. His lovely secretary Stella takes an interest in him, but he's too busy trying to help local deaf woman Belinda because That's just how amazing he is. He overlooks romance for the chance to save a lost puppy. Yes, the puppy is Belinda. Dr. Richardson teaches Belinda how to read lips, and how to communicate with sign language. He then takes her to an audiologist who delivers the sad news, but on a sad face, that Belinda's deafness cannot be cured. Also, she's pregnant, because apparently deaf people have all their medical needs, including gynecological, taken care of by their audiologist. Can't lie, that would actually be pretty convenient. Just, one trip to the hospital a year. Belinda's entire character revolves around her overcoming her deafness and learning to be a parent who can read. Jane Wyman won an Academy Award for the performance in the first ever example of Welcome to a special section on Oscar bait. Portraying disabled characters has a high rate of return for actors seeking an Oscar. Since Dustin Hoffman won for his performance as an autistic savant in Rain Man, roughly half of Best Actor Oscars have been awarded to portrayals of individuals with disability or illness. Half. Whilst these films admittedly can sometimes play an important role in advancing disability discourse by humanising disabled characters in the public's eye, having them be the protagonist rather than an amusing side character or the villain, they are all too often of the angel variety. And sure, it's true that building empathy does build to more solid social change, but none of these actors are disabled themselves. In 1968's Charlie, an adaptation of the short story Flowers for Algernon, Cliff Robertson played a man with a learning disability who takes a drug that makes him intelligent. Gasp. Film critic Vincent Cranby called the film a self-conscious contemporary drama, the first ever to exploit mental retardation, don't say that word, for the bittersweet romance of it. He called Robertson's performance earnest, but points out that we, the audience, are forced into the vaguely unpleasant position of being voyeurs, congratulating ourselves for not being Charlie as often as we feel a distant pity for him. This was followed by John Mills winning the Best Supporting Actor Award in 1970 for playing a mentally deficient, mute and crippled character in Ryan's Daughter. His character is a pretty on-the-nose village idiot. It's set in a village. In 1975's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it kind of throws a spanner into the works, I suppose, in that although it takes place in an insane asylum and is one of only 3 films to win all of the big 5 Oscars, that's Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Director, Best Actor and Best Actress, the acting awards were given to actors who played non-mentally ill characters. But Jack Nicholson's character has to pretend to be mentally ill. So, he is playing someone playing a mentally ill person. Equally, Peter Sellers was infamously snubbed when he was nominated but didn't win an Oscar for playing the mentally challenged Chance the Gardener in 1979's Being There, a film he worked very hard to get made. It follows a middle-aged man known only as Chance the Gardener, who is believed by all in his life to be mentally challenged, and has thus never been allowed out of the elegant townhouse he lives in with his benefactor, the old man, who dies at the start of the film. Chance has only 2 pastimes in life, gardening and watching television, as the old man warns him that should he leave the house, he would likely be committed to an institution due to his mental disability. But that might be a lie. When the old man dies, Chance is told by the lawyers, who have no record of his existence, that he must leave the house. He packs a suitcase of clothes, all of which are hand-me-downs from the old man, his remote control, and ventures out into the world, only to be hit by a limo. Fortunately, the limo's owner, Eve Rand, just so happens to be the wife of an incredibly rich and dying old man, and since his mansion is now partly set up as a hospital anyway, she invites Chance to recover there, assuming from his expensive, if worn clothes and from mishearing his name as Chauncey Gardner, that he's a down-on-his-luck businessman who she must help. Both she and her husband Ben take a shine to Chance and bring him into their circle, eventually introducing him socially to the President of the United States. I know, if you're going to get hit by a car, make sure it's a limo. When asked what he thinks of the current economic climate, Chance, confused by everything but the word growth, replies, "As long as the roots are not severed, all is well, and all will be well in the garden." Which of course makes everyone think that he is a genius, and he soon becomes one of the most powerful people in America. The film has a lot of kind of cringe comedy, as in scene after scene, we are led to believe that soon the shoe will drop, and these important people will realise that Chance isn't as profound as they are deluding themselves into thinking he is. In some senses, the film is a deconstruction of the idiot hero trope. Chance doesn't actually do anything heroic. He just has admirable qualities projected onto him by others. Equally, his mental disability is not key to his success per se. He's just extremely lucky and the others are extremely gullible. Also, he may not actually have any kind of mental disability at all, because it might be the fact that his mother did, and then she gave birth to him as a secret baby because he's probably the son of the old man who clearly had sex with a woman who couldn't actually give proper consent. And then Chance was born and the old man was like, haha, can't let my poor little rape child out into the world, must keep him locked away. This film's really weird if you start to look into it. But, spoiler, in the end we find out he has magic powers because he believes in himself. Because the only disability is a bad attitude. What? As I talked about in my Autism Tropes in Media video, 1988's box office smash Rain Man is also quite the example. The film won the Best Picture, Best Direction and Best Original Screenplay in 1988, and Dustin Hoffman won Best Actor for his portrayal of Raymond, an autistic savant with exceptional but not supernatural abilities. The not supernatural bit is actually important, and we will get to that later in the video. Leonardo DiCaprio got his first Oscar nomination for playing a mentally handicapped boy in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, a drama film following Johnny Depp and his very dysfunctional family as they struggle to deal in the aftermath of their father's suicide. The film frames their main struggle as being DiCaprio's Arnie, Gilbert's younger brother, who is developmentally delayed. So, funnily enough, despite the Oscar baity storyline, Arnie is not actually seen as being inspirationally disadvantaged or in any way inspirational, but rather as being a heavy burden and complete pain for those who have to take care of him, even though he's not a bad kid and actually means well. 1994's Forrest Gump clearly sticks more to the inspirationally disadvantaged trope, however, and won 4 of the big 5 Oscars, plus 2 more. It's pretty much a textbook example, in fact. Forrest is a good-natured but simple-minded man from Alabama who narrates the story of his life to strangers at a bus stop, managing to touch on pretty much all of the important events and people from the 1950s to the 1980s in some way. And much like Being There's Chance the Gardener, Forrest rises to fame and fortune purely by being his very simple self. However, he doesn't fully understand the significance of everything that he has done and sees himself as just an average person living his life. I really enjoy the film, by the way. It's just so fun to watch. Also, I feel a bit weird about it. The film frames Forrest as being so dense that he doesn't know when to stop trying or when situations are a bad idea, and thus consistently attempts things that other people wouldn't even consider. He therefore achieves spectacular success, whilst others are left scratching their heads like, what? How did he know that that would be a good idea? He didn't. He's just really lucky. That's what makes him special. Contrasting Forrest's willingness to run towards the challenge is the character of Jenny, who runs away from her problems. Although one of those problems is an abusive childhood, so narratively it makes sense why Jenny is conflict avoidant, and I don't know why the film is trying to encourage taking on your issues, not wasting your chances. In this case, it's weird. Forrest's life takes him from walking in corrective leg braces to running across North America, from misunderstood simple boy to champion ping pong player and shrimp tycoon with shining optimism. Jenny's journey, on the other hand, is from Catholic schoolgirl to being naked in Playboy and getting high. Forrest's character in the film is actually changed from the books it's adapted from. It took out his swearing, sex life, and racism. Disabled people can be well-rounded assholes too. As written, he has savant syndrome, although it's known by its historical name in the book, idiot savant. Don't use that term for actual people, it is both a misnomer and just plain rude. Savant syndrome is a rare condition in which someone with significant mental disabilities demonstrates certain abilities far in excess of average. These skills are generally related to memory and fall into one of 5 areas: art, maths, music, spatial skills, or just pure memorization. This may manifest in rapid calculation, musical ability, map making, or perfect artistic ability. Most commonly, savants have calendrical skills and can calculate the day of the week for any given date with speed and accuracy, or recall their exact memory from any given date, including early childhood. Those with the condition have a brain that is differently wired to the general population, be this due to neurodevelopmental disorder, autism for example, or an acquired brain injury including strokes or head trauma. In the Forrest Gump novel, author Winston Groom uses misspellings and grammatical errors to indicate Forrest's southern accent, education, and cognitive disabilities. He is much more crass. Other omissions from the book include it being Jenny's pressuring Forrest to settle down and stop meandering from one weird occupation to the next. Physical disabilities can, of course, be Oscar bait as well. Daniel Day-Lewis won one in 1989 for My Left Foot, the biographical tale of Christy Brown, who was born in the 1950s with cerebral palsy and would have been written off in those times were it not for his determined mother, who taught him to express himself by using the only part of his body he could control, his left foot. He goes on to become a well-known author and painter. In 2004, Jamie Foxx won the Best Actor Oscar for playing blind legendary R&B musician Ray Charles in the film Ray, which follows him from his humble roots in Florida as he became blind and then to perform music, eventually reaching mainstream success. Throw in as well Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman, about a blind retired US Army lieutenant who takes his new teenage carer to New York City for some hijinks. He's more of like a disabled badass character rather than inspirationally disadvantaged, however, as he can throw people against a wall and then choke them where required. Sure, okay. Blindness is a really big Oscar thing. Actually, even John Wayne got his only Oscar by playing the half-blind Marshall Rooster Cogburn in True Grit, and then later joked that he would have won an eye patch sooner if he'd known that's what it would take to net one. Yeah. By the way, calling these roles Oscar bait does not diminish that the actors involved may indeed be doing a very good job. If I've listed your favourite actor in your favourite movie, I'm not saying that they did a bad job or even that the character as written didn't deserve an Oscar. I'm just wondering why so many Oscars are won by non-disabled people pretending to be disabled. I mean, as I mentioned in my Hollywood review video, which actually talks a lot about race and sexuality where the Oscars are concerned rather than disability, but also disability, click here to watch that. In the 91-year history of the Oscars, they have only recognised 2 disabled actors. In 1947, that was Harold Russell, who had lost both of his hands during his time in the army, and then won Best Supporting Actor for his work in The Best Years of Our Lives. And in 1987, actress and deaf icon Marlee Matlin won Best Actress for Children of a Lesser God, in which she plays a janitor at a school for the deaf and hard of hearing children, who then falls in love with a hearing speech teacher. Haha, so Hollywood, you'll take our inspirational stories and claim you're helping disabled people by sharing our stories, but you won't give us a job? No, friend. Building empathy is the first step. Expanding representation is the next one. Let's move on, however, to a special section of inspiration porn, the Super Crip. These are characters with disabilities who go above and beyond the abilities of even non-disabled people. Oh God, it's my childhood inadequacy fear of I can't be disabled because I'm not training for the Paralympics coming back to haunt me. Not all disabled people are geniuses who can move large objects with their minds, okay? Professor X is just one really specific example. Some of us can only move a pencil. Also, not all blind people are musical virtuosos. Not all people with depression are tortured artists. Not every autistic person can immediately count the number of toothpicks you've thrown on the floor. We don't need to have a special skill that makes up for the innate negative disability and therefore brings us up to deserving of rights. We are all deserving. Blindness is often telling of a secret superpower. Think Daredevil, who has such incredible radar that he can see better than everyone else. Or that human assassin in the Blind Date episode of Angel, who blinded herself to learn to see outside of the spectrum of normal human sight. Which, I mean, don't do that. Oh, he beats her anyway, because vampires don't breathe or have a heartbeat, so... Blind people simply get more exercise with paying attention to their other senses, and hey, the brain is capable of repurposing unused space in the sensory and motor corticals, but, like, don't blind yourself to test that. Other examples include the boy who could fly, using autism to fly. Emma in Heroes, who is deaf and has the ability to see sound as bright waves of light, or Dr. Kevin Casey in Scrubs, having an encyclopedic medical knowledge because his OCD led him to read medical books over and over again. It's not exactly a disability, but 1993's film Rookie of the Year, 12-year-old Henry is inept at baseball until he breaks his arm and it heals in such a way that he becomes a super fast baseball pitcher. Although, fun fact, Mordecai Brown nearly ruined his hand through several accidents, and it means that he now throws curveballs, so... Which Google tells me is a good thing. I really like how Star Trek The Next Generation blends disability and extraterrestrial powers. So the character Reva is deaf and telepathic, but that might be the same thing since both are inherited features in his family, or one might cause the other. Counselor Troy, who has empathetic powers, loses them and then attempts to leave Starfleet on the grounds that she is now disabled. Captain Picard then tries to convince her to stay, arguing that another of her senses might strengthen. She snaps back that there is no scientific evidence that losing a sense strengthens another, and that it's a myth which was created by non-disabled people to make themselves feel more comfortable around disability. Oh, Commander Troy. Whilst giving disabled characters superpowers is definitely an improvement on just straight pity, it can get irritating. Disabled characters, much like real disabled people, probably just want to live normal lives, really, with like suitable accommodations, like ramps and braille, and people treating us like human beings. That does not mean treating us like we're magically pure and delicate little flowers who are incorruptible. And a good influence on the non-disabled lead character, especially when this little angel is just too good for this world. Yes, that means they die. Because disabled people are just too innocent to exist. We're not real people. Okay, so maybe you've watched at this point and thought, yeah, but how bad are a couple of bad characters really? Well, a couple of bad characters wouldn't be so bad if we had more than a couple of characters. Inspirationally disabled characters are often just exploitive gimmicks to tug at the heartstrings of able-bodied and neurotypical viewers to make them feel inspired without actually challenging them to do anything about the systemic issues that make life difficult for disabled people in the first place. I mean, you've probably come across very similar inspirationally disadvantaged tropes before, in the adjacent form perhaps of Magical Negro, in which a black person is an inspiring object that teaches a white person how to perfect their white life. Also seen in the magical queer, generally a gay man who teaches a straight woman how to find love. Or the magical Native American, who, let's be honest, is the only Native American you're going to see on screen this year. The person possesses powers purely because of their ethnicity, looking at you, Pocahontas. As if this is the only thing wrong with the portrayal of Pocahontas. Anyone else feeling the pain of growing up to realise your childhood crush is problematic? This trope either implies or just outright states that the character's ethnic power comes from innate closeness to nature and animals, and that civilized races just don't have it. It's a kind of form of positive discrimination that intends to promote a positive image of Native Americans, but rather than accurately portraying their culture or even showing them as human beings, instead just only reflects back the white audience's preconceived notions and shows Indigenous people purely through their interactions with white people, thus centering the white narrative. Again, in a way, it's a rosy nostalgia for a time when white people were apparently once magical too. Because apparently that was a thing. But it also kind of implies that white people are now too advanced for the folksy old ways, and that the other race will actually never be able to catch up. It's a whole mess. It's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. The quality of mysterious otherness is fine for vampires and mermaids, however, because honestly, they don't deserve rights and they know what they did. But when you're dealing with real people, yet only portraying them as a very narrow, stereotypical way, that will have real life consequences. Consequences. How are we supposed to live up to this image? As a disabled child, I saw people either with perfect bodies living daily lives or disabled bodies living extraordinary lives. I had no idea how a sluggish, painful body could live a normal life, and at the same time I was painfully aware of my inability to climb a mountain one-handed or use my memory loss to become a secret agent. Could be an assassin, maybe. I've seen Memento. I mean, can any of us ever really live up to the little boy with Down syndrome in the short film Mention, who is discovered by a group of runaway Nazis in the last days of World War II, and he is so cute he redeems their genocidal ways? So it's over. I'll never be as cute. Why even try? Probably the main thing I hate about inspiration porn is that it only views disabled people through the lens of non-disabled people. It's that video clip of a child with cerebral palsy climbing the stairs for the first time, and all the comments underneath being, "Oh, just shows all you need is hard work," from non-disabled people, and "pushing myself like this is how I irreparably damage my ligaments, this child is in pain," from adults with cerebral palsy who actually know. These depictions are all based on other people's experience of you. It's not me as a disabled person being able to watch a story and associate with it from the inside. I'm watching Tiny Tim be bizarrely hopeful and big-hearted despite his difficult circumstances. And knowing that absolutely no one relates to him as a human being because he's a rock. It's really boring. The comic strip, for better or for worse, has a classic example of this. The inspirational, disabled high school student Shannon Lake, who, after being mocked one too many times in the school cafeteria, gets up on a table and delivers a lengthy plea for understanding on behalf of all special needs kids everywhere. I mean, definitely would have helped with the bullying in real life. Yeah, sure, totally a thing to do. The character was based on the author's developmentally delayed niece, and that's just one example that kind of shows she was written clearly from an outside perspective. She doesn't know what it's really like to be a disabled teenager, and that's just not what we need. There are, of course, much better examples of disabled characters, where they're written as either inspiring for the actually inspirational things they do, or else just normal people who happen to have disabilities. These are some that I thought of, but add yours in the comments below. Also, it's perfectly fine to disagree with me on everything. You can do it well. I absolutely love forensic examiner Clarissa Mullery in the UK TV show Silent Witness. She is a full-on deadpan snarker who is generally the smartest person in a very smart room. Delightfully, she's also happily married to a non-disabled husband who is the only person to have ever beaten her at Scrabble. It's adorable. The show deals with having a disabled character really well, I feel. It isn't mentioned in every single episode with a big flashing sign, but she's obviously in her wheelchair, and equally it isn't hidden or ignored, and they'll occasionally throw in a line about her being unable to get her wheelchair into somewhere or to open something, along with key episodes that explore her story further, like the episode One Day, which reveals Clarissa's childhood fear of being sent to an institutional home for disabled people. That's one of the great things about having a disabled actor play a disabled character who also has some hand in shaping how that looks. The Fact of Life's character Jerry, Blair's cousin, was played by Jerry Jewell, an actress and stand-up comedian who, like her character, has cerebral palsy. She was introduced to the show as being liked by everyone except Blair, who eventually admits that she's just jealous of her cousin for getting all of the attention when she actually tries really hard to be perfect. She's called out by another character for being insensitive and then makes amends, which makes a great starting episode, and Jerry Jewell then became the first actor with a disability to have a recurring role in a TV series. Although other characters treat her as inspirational, Cousin Jerry herself was rather snarky about her condition and refused to be seen as anything less than a regular person. However, when the showrunners then wanted the character to actually appear only once a season for very special episodes, Jewell quit. But non-disabled actors can also do well in roles where characters are disabled. I mean, I'm not saying that every portrayal is awful. In the Golden Girls episode Blind Ambition, we meet Rose's sister Lily, who has recently gone blind and is trying really hard to be an inspirational disabled person. But reality just keeps getting in her way. She refuses the offer of a cane to help get across a room that's piled high with things because she's, memorised the layout of the house. She can do it herself. And so barrels right on. Cue everyone rushing to move things out of her way. It's a funny scene, but we're laughing at Lily's boneheadedness and insistence on being the best disabled angel ever, rather than her disability or how it affects the others. She then relents, goes to a school for the blind to learn how to actually take care of herself, gets a guide dog, and learns to drive again. The Golden Girls, I think, is actually really great at dealing with disability, probably because it is a show that talks openly about aging. The character Blanche dates two men with disabilities, a blind man who she pushes away once she actually starts to fall for him, in a classic, "Oh God, I actually like you, you'll never like me as much." That's just deep insecurity talking, pals. And a man who uses a wheelchair and at first appears like he is just amazingly inspirational, until we find out he's cheating on his wife and he's a massive jerk. So, get to know people before you decide they're wonderful. The theory of everything also deconstructs this trope in the same way, as Stephen Hawking tries to overcome his body getting weaker and weaker from ALS, whilst his mind remains brilliant, but he's also a very flawed human being. I mean, didn't stop Eddie Redmayne from winning the Best Actor Oscar though, because I think he did a really good job. So I'm not like saying he shouldn't, I'm just pointing out. Disabled people, we make the best characters. Especially when you have a disabled actor help craft the role, like Mike, a newscaster with Parkinson's disease in the Michael J. Fox show, played by Michael J. Fox, who has Parkinson's disease. That was very circular. He's constantly dealing with people who see him as inspirational, to the extent that his desire to be seen as a regular guy is a recurring punchline on the show. It's also averted with The West Wing's Joey Lucas, played by Marlee Matlin, who is a polling genius and just happens to be deaf and is played by Marlee Matlin, and uses an interpreter named Kenny. Characters don't go out of their way to avoid talking about her deafness or ignore the interpreter the way that you're supposed to. People never do that in real life. They're too polite. Everyone talks to the interpreter. Actually, often they'll talk to the interpreter and not to me, to the extent that she has to tell them to actually look in my face when they're talking to me. Does Jessica want to say anything? Yes, talk to me. Joey's deafness had no effect on her ability to do her job or her interactions and sometimes flirtations with the main cast, and she still gets to joke around with them. Marlee Matlin's characters are just generally always like... Another great character for deaf representation, I think, is David in 4 Weddings and a Funeral. He's just a normal guy who has a great fondness for sexual humour, happens to be deaf. He also constantly swears, and he tells his brother, the lead character Charles, the one played by Hugh Grant, that he's rubbish. He's just a really nice addition to the cast of very quirky people, and it's probably the most normal of them. I was going to mention Becky Jackson from Glee, but then I'd have to actually talk about the rest of Glee, and I have already made this video too long. I feel like everything Glee gets wrong about disability is probably just its own video. The end. In conclusion, when writing disabled characters, don't make them unhuman blessed angels too good for this earth. Make them people. Those of us with disabilities shouldn't be given extra commendation for doing things that people typically do, even though, yes, it can be harder for us. I mean, I definitely feel like I deserve a parade when I have dragged myself upstairs with a brain-splitting migraine when it feels like my cerebral cortex is somehow trying to force its way out of my nose. But other times I'm just casually going up the stairs. I mean, I personally just really want parades, so for anything, I'll take it. Going above and beyond is obviously something great, and I'm not saying that disabled people can't ever be seen as inspiring or don't ever do inspiring things, but we do other stuff too, like actually having personalities. Could write that into your character. Be inspired by a person's smile, by the joy they bring others, by their determination to be happy. Don't assume a person's struggle on sight. And thus we reach the end of this monster video. Congratulations for making it all the way to the end. Please leave a star in the comments if you managed, because that's actually a feat in itself. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you liked this video by clicking the like button so I know whether to make more media analysis style videos. They're pretty hard work, but a lot of fun to put together. Remember that pre-orders of my new merch begin on the 1st of October, and I will see you in my next video.